So there's this one series that has really captivated me from the moment I started reading it. This series has some really dark themes, but it is also a very mature series that knows how to handle those themes really well. The series I'm referring to is I'm the Grim Reaper. This series does a phenomenal job at everything it does, so let's talk about it. But before doing that, it would help out a ton if you could subscribe to the channel, and if by the end of this video you find yourself liking it, maybe leave a like as well, as that is also a big help. But anyway, let's get into this. I'm the Grim Reaper talks about a lot of things, but you know what my favorite thing is that they talk about? It is how they handle the afterlife. Heaven and hell are two sides of the same coin in this series. You can't have one without the other. Plus, I love how they don't make heaven seem all that great of a place. Don't get me wrong, it is certainly better than what we've seen of hell in certain cases, but it's not that great either. The top layer of heaven and the bottom layer of hell are essentially the same thing in this universe. In heaven, you cease to be altogether, losing all sense of everything around you, not being able to love or do anything that made you human in the first place. Whereas on the ninth layer of hell, you lose all your physical senses and are forced to float in darkness for all eternity. Both are bad for different reasons. But I love to see the dichotomy between both heaven and hell. It really brings this series together. What defines humanity? Is it your ability to feel empathy and emotions? Is it your ability to dream? Is it your self-awareness of the world around you? Is your ability to sin and make good or bad choices? Well, this comic sets out to answer that question. We get the perspective of what it means to be human through so many different characters. Some of them are of the mindset that being righteous and making good choices is what makes you human. Some think it's the ability to feel emotion and love for those around us that makes us human. And others think it is the self-awareness of the world. There are so many different perspectives this comic likes to take on this question, and having this question answered is a hard one that we still haven't seen or probably never will see fully answered in this webtoon. What makes you evil? Is it doing petty theft because you can't afford some shit? Or is it killing in self-defense because you felt like you had no other choice? Or what about being truly evil and killing for the sake of it and loving doing it? We get to see all these different types of sinners and more in this series, and seeing all of them interact with each other and our main characters make for some really good moments in this series. We get to see what it takes to be judged and killed as a sinner of this world, and let me tell you, it isn't much. A lot of the crimes that the Grim Reapers killed people for in this story were not crimes worthy of the punishment. And we start to see the moral dilemma of being a Grim Reaper and not discerning who is truly worthy of death. It is questions like this that make this story such a good read. This comic explores such heavy topics in an awesome and really entertaining way. Do your past sins define you if you have changed for the better? Well, some people would definitely say yes, especially if your crime is really bad. On the other hand, if you are a person who has paid his dues and changed as a person, some would say no. This webtoon does a really good job at showing us multiple different kinds of people and letting you answer that question for yourself. There is just something about the way that the characters act in this story that really makes it hard to pick an answer to this question. Of course, this question can also be applied to real life. This webtoon does a really good job at making you think and ponder deep questions while still being able to tell a really good and entertaining story. Love can control the actions of a lot of people, and we see that on full display in this series. Love can come in many different forms, from romantic to parental and vice versa, and we see how being in love affects things in this story. We see many characters act out of love, and in a lot of cases, it does a lot of harm. Does that mean that their actions weren't justified in their minds? No, not at all. It just means that love drove them to do either really stupid or really bad things, and it has led them to a terrible situation that we see the characters in now. The biggest act of this we see in this story is with the main two characters, Chase and Scarlet. They have both done some really stupid things in the name of love, and hell, Scarlet still is. Scarlet is still trying to be better, and that is something I love. Love plays a big role in a lot of stuff in this webtoon, but not always in a romantic way. A lot of the characters in this comic struggle to overcome loneliness. Seeing that struggle is all too real, as loneliness can really spiral your life out of control and quickly. We see people struggle to talk to people and form a genuine connection with others. We see the growth of people going out of their comfort zone and trying to be better. But we also see the depths of what loneliness can truly do to somebody. This comic does a really good job at not holding back on being dark. This webtoon doesn't hold it back, and it makes the story way better for it. Alright, enough of all the darker stuff. This webtoon also is extremely funny at times. This story is able to strike a really good balance between being really funny and being extremely serious. Neither one of these components takes away from the other. So of course, in a more relaxed situation, friends or lovers are going to joke around with each other and have a good time. There's also some situational comedy like some of the stuff in the more recent chapters, but this comes from the environment the characters are in as well as the importance of the situation. Sometimes things are just funny, but this series does a good job at switching on a dime and making the serious moments and the comedic moments melt together in a really entertaining and fun story to read. Bro, the artwork in this series is really well done. There's so much emotion in each of the characters. The characters all have a massive amount of drip, which makes them all look really cool as fuck, and the fight scenes are also insane. Speaking of the fight scenes, the amount of emotion that is able to come out through the fights is incredible, plus the way that all the powers are drawn makes for some really insane paneling. Everything about the artwork for this comic is insane and makes getting invested in the story so easy. The last thing I want to bring up is the character writing. All of the characters in this story are really well written. Let's start with Scarlet. She has gone through an insane amount of development as the series has gone on. She still has a lot of things she needs to work on, but she has still grown a ton. Her journey of learning to not only love others but herself was a really compelling journey to see unfold. She has genuinely become a better person as the series has gone on. She is now able to recognize that some crimes don't deserve such extreme punishment, and she can also show compassion to others around her, which is a new feeling for her, but one that is extremely welcomed in this series. Chase is the male lead of the story. He is the driving force for pretty much all of Scarlet's development in the story, and it is the same with her. She is the driving force for all of Chase's development as well. Chase struggles to form genuine connections with people until he meets Scarlet. They are able to get along as really good friends at first until the relationship develops more. He has this naive sense of justice at the beginning of the series. This is a big part of his development as a person. He has to learn that the world isn't as black as white as he sees it to be. Chase was always a smart character in this series. He was the voice of reason and always came up with the plans and strategies needed to do what they needed to do. He has a lot of great development throughout the webtoon alongside Scarlet, and their interactions together are also very nice. Satan is such an amazing antagonist in the story. Like, he has such a great personality that it makes you hate that you kinda like him despite the fact that he's a piece of shit. But he just has this fun, I don't give a fuck attitude about him that genuinely makes his character great. Plus, he is actually super threatening. We see firsthand how powerful he is, and we know that overcoming him is going to be a nightmare and a massive struggle. The rest of the cast is pretty decent as well. There are a lot of really good side characters that play pretty important roles in the story and have pretty interesting and fun personalities. Character interaction is also done so well in the story. We get so many great interactions with the characters that it can have you dying of laughter in one chapter and bawling your eyes out in the next because of how real these characters feel. The character writing is genuinely so good. I'm the Grim Reaper is an incredibly well written and compelling story. It has a lot of deep and dark themes alongside some hilarious comedy to help lighten the mood. This series does an amazing job of striking the perfect balance between everything and makes the series so good. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend doing so because it is so damn amazing.
Imagine, if you will, sitting down to your morning coffee, turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, both local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor